Alright, so I picked up this JCPenney typewriter from a yard sale for $5. I didn't test it out, seen it, $5, can't complain, picked it up. Got it home, pulled out the case, it's got the case with it. I mean, this thing's well made, it's all metal. Old school. One thing I noticed upon testing, I'm gonna see if you can spot it. Yes, it needs to be lubricated. It's not supposed to stick. We're gonna take care of that today. But what's a typewriter supposed to do? It is supposed to move. Notice how it only moves when I put pressure on the sliding rack back here. I'm gonna use auto space too. See, it moves just fine. Push it back, it moves just fine both ways. Moves just fine both ways. Paper adjustment, line adjustment, setting 1. You can double space it or even triple space it. I have it set to 1 because that's how I would use it. But you know, also you notice it's not supposed to slide like that. So on a normal typewriter that's functioning correctly, you will see this top rack has some spring tension on it. Obviously here there is no spring tension, so something's gone wrong. Now, I did kind of flip this over off camera when I first looked at it, and I found this that popped out of it, which that might give you an idea of what the problem is. You can see a snapped end right there. You can see how frayed it is. That portion of the string snapped. What I think the string goes back to a spring, like a pulley that's spring loaded, and it's supposed to keep tension. Well, for some reason this broke. What for? I don't know. Probably old age. I mean, this is plenty strong. Maybe that's just a constant. Maybe it broke right at the knot. But we're gonna find out. So I'm gonna flip this baby over carefully, making sure not to damage it. There we go. Okay. We've got flathead screws, it looks like. I don't need to remove these rubber feet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 flathead screws holding this bottom cover on. I do not have much experience with typewriters, but I do have a lot of mechanical knowledge. So we're gonna figure out what the issue with this thing is. See if we can get this thing working again. Okay, so this panel, yes, this panel is just lifting off and kind of crusty in there. Be expected though. I don't see any bugs. That's what I was kind of worried about. All right, set that bottom panel off camera and yes. So I believe, yeah, this right here is, yep, this right here is a spring-loaded pulley. Yep. And it looks like that string has, yeah, that's the hole for the string right here. Right there's the hole. And yeah, it has come off of that. Looks like it might have broke right at the knot. That string looks plenty long enough. let's see if we can figure out where that knot went to, because that obviously didn't break. It's probably got some sort of fork that's holding that knot. Because, you know, if it's under spring tension, you're not going to have just the rope slip off. Let's see here. I think I see it. Right here. Let me get some screwdriver. Right here, it looks like that knot hooks onto. Let's just try it to verify. Yep, that's perfect fit for this knot to hang on to. I can kind of see a witness mark. You can see how it's held on there really nice. I can see a witness mark on this rope here where it's been pinched by that fork for years. You can see how it's discolored. So it's been at an angle for a really long time. So I have no doubts that that's our hook point. Now, how are we going to hold this under spring tension and get that rope fed over here? That's gonna be a doozy. What I'm thinking, I see this. There is a lever here that I can hold. If I hold this, yes, so I can leave the tension off of this. It's got a ratchet mechanism, so let's relieve all that spring tension off of this pulley. So you see there's no spring tension on the pulley. You know, I can spin it. But if I hold it still and I press these teeth down, that ratchet mechanism's catching those teeth. And so every time I turn it, you can see that spring tension. See how it just spun? It allows me to build spring tension on it without having to stretch a spring, and you know, because I have to wind it, kind of like a pull start string in a push mower engine. You have to wind the pulley up before you tie your rope through. That way it'll have plenty of spring back. But it looks like here I can actually just knot this rope and then feed it down, hook it, and then spring tension this by notching one by one on these little teeth here to build tension. So let's see if I can thread this through this hole and manage to tie a knot. So let's see here. I'm just gonna tilt this upwards so I can actually see what I'm doing. Yeah, so I've grabbed the rope and I'm just gonna pull it like so. Okay, that's gone easy enough. I'm gonna give a bunch of wiggle room. I'm gonna try to get the knot as closest to the end as I can. That way, in case there's not gonna be enough room, I wanna, minimize the risk of not having enough rope. So I'm just gonna grab this in with the tweezers and try to pull that sucker straight. Okay. That looks to be a good knot. That should hold just fine. Oh yeah, that's a good knot. That is not coming out, yep. There we go. Let's just make sure that knot's not gonna bind on anything. Get it? That knot's not gonna bind. Yeah, it's seen here. Let me relieve the spring tension. Yep. Yep, it's made one full revolution. Yeah, it's made one full turn without catching anything, so I should be good to just wire this through. Yeah, let's go for it. I was just gonna replace this rope, this little piece of twine, but I don't see a need to if it's not completely dry rotten. That might just be fine. So down here, oops, right down here, I see a passage. Right down there, see a passage that I can thread the rope to get over here. Once I hook it on, I will start building tension on this pulley. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this mechanism works just fine, and that's all I need to do. So stand by as I struggle to get this piece of twine through. I feel it binding on something. Let's try and push it like this. See if I can get that thing close enough to the end where I can grab it. Oh, you know what? I think I might be able to pull the rack all the way to this side, thread it through enough so I can grab it, or I can just thread it like that. See how it's pulling it through? Lift it up so I can move it. Okay. Let's see if I can see it down this end here. I do apologize about these viewing angles. I know it's not too pretty. Ah, yes, I can see the rope just right at this end, and I have grabbed it. The rope is now right at the end. Let's see if I can pull it through. Ah, yes. So, if this light would just cooperate, you can see right here, the rope is now right here where I need it. Now this fork is just here. So I'm going to see if I can thread this through, and I have threaded that through the fork, as you can see. And I am just going to hold that there and see if I can build tension on this spring. You can hear it ratcheting, click, click, click. Says the ratchet mechanism. Okay, and my rope just pulled tight, so now I should just be able to charge the mechanism, wind it. I'm not too sure how much I want to wind it. I don't want to break the spring, because then I'd be screwed. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it maybe 3 or 4 revolutions, and then I'm going to turn it over and make sure the rack moves at a consistent speed all the way through. That way I know that I have enough spring tension on this to make the rack move correctly, while also not stressing that string, stressing the string and the spring, because I don't want neither of those to break. The string can break before the spring does. Very violent sounding. And I do notice while looking, the stuff does look a little sticky. I think it could use a nice oiling. That will probably be a second part. Is that a piece of cork? Yes, it is. I thought it was rust. It was a piece of cork to dampen the keys when they bought them out. That's a good touch. Again, I love the build quality of this old machinery. Like, can you even buy something of this quality today? I'm sure this wasn't a cheap machine when it came out, but being that it's from JCPenney, but even compared to something you can buy today, similar, I don't think no amount of money will get you the quality that this was made of. This is made in the USA. It's got a serial number stamped. It's made to be repaired. It had a sticker on it that say that stated that you could bring it into JCPenney, any JCPenney office to be serviced, which I think is nice. Things aren't made to be serviced anymore, which is quite sad, because I think everything deserves to have a second chance after being okay. That's all the attention I'm comfortable giving that spring at the moment. So let's just flip this booger over and see what this will do. Alright, I already know this. Look at that. Hello, world. I'm now functioning. Good. Explanation point. Explanation point. Wonderful. Okay, let's see if it moves. It still needs help. You can see how it, towards the end, it stops. If I give it a little help, it'll go. Yeah, it's not supposed to stop right there. So let's flip it back over and give it a couple more turns on that cog. Actually, let's bring it all the way that way. Yeah, all the way that way, because it should, yeah, it's gonna have the least amount of tension this way. So I will kind of do it by feel. I'll give it a few more turns and kind of feel how tight it gets. So let's flip this thing over once more without pressing all the keys, and I just moved that out of its position that I wanted it in. Okay, so let's start giving it more tension. Yeah, it's pretty loose. Okay, let's try that. Okay, I just seen a piece of some wire fell out. Okay, some piece of like enamel wire. See how this goes. And better. Yeah, it's still struggling. Yep, making it farther than it was. Let's flip it over it once more. Give this thing a couple more twists on that cog. Hold the jokes. This thing must want a lot of tension on it. Not sure how much I like that, being how old this thing is. Would hate to destroy it. You know what? Anybody here like classic cars? I do. I know it's kind of off subject, but I really have a love for how classic cars feel. They just feel so heavy, so robust. Unlike some of these newer vehicles, like my buddy just bought a brand new Civic. Feels like a piece of plastic. You're sitting in it, everything's plasticky and really hollow feeling, you know, and you hop in a, you know, a 90s or 80s Civic and it feels pretty solid. Everything, even going back to the 70s Civics, a lot of metal exposed in the interiors, and it's pretty, they feel robust, the old ones, but I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure it's with safety. Let's just flip this thing back over again and see if we can get this thing to feed all the way like it's supposed to. You can see how much more power it's got in it. It's moving the whole entire. Ha! It's gone all the way this time. That's as far as it's supposed to go. Yeah, you can hear it lose speed at the end. Let's give it a couple more turns and see what that does for it. Again, I'm being really careful. I don't want to destroy this poor thing. Let's actually move this all the way that way. Oop. Seems like the spring's doing okay. It's like a clock spring is what it is. Come on. Ooh. Makes me nervous. Okay, I think, well, let's give it that last click. I think that's all I'm comfortable giving it. That little wheel is plastic. Ah, yes. As you can see here, what's that supposed to do? Not sure. Very nice. Yep. So we seem to have got this thing working again. It still loses speed at the end, but it's completing a full cycle without getting hung up on anything. So I think I'm gonna call that good. So how about you say we'll put a piece of paper in it and see if we can type anything. All right. Okay, let's feed this thing a piece of paper and see if it eats it. Move that. Okay, so I'm gonna lift this bar up. Oops, feed some of this through to about right there. We can backtrack a little bit. And we are going to position this all the way at the end. Give a couple spaces, and let's see what we can do here. And also this ribbon, I've not tested it due to the fact that this thing hasn't worked, so I don't know if this ribbon is good or not. I did get this for $5 at a yard sale. Guy said he hadn't used it in a very long time, so I'm sure that ribbon is well past its expiration date. But let's give it a try anyway. I'm gonna set the ink to black. It's only black. This is for multiple colors. That's white and then red. But let's go for black. It's capital. Okay, so that's a hold for your caps. It's like a caps lock. Okay. So I guess let's type hello in all caps. This is my first paper. Oop. Got stuck. Let's do this. Paper. After repairing, the unit, comma, and or clock spring thingy. Exclamation point. All right, let's see how that looks. As you can see, it does need a ribbon. That text is pretty light. Although older typewriters, the ribbon type, not the spinning ball type. The spinning ball type with the erase feature, they print a darker ink. I think they use a carbon tape, and the ball just hits the tape and leaves behind a carbon imprint of whatever letter you're trying to type. While this is like a sort of ink, and it's not erasable. It tends to be lighter. Interesting. You see how dark that comma is and that exclamation point. Well, what this means is that this typewriter works now. Am I a good typist? No. Am I experienced using these things? No. I'm just kind of winging it. But I call that successful. We got this old thing working again, and I just noticed someone scribbled on this piece of metal with a pen. Interesting. But this feels like a quality unit. Yeah. I'm going to give it a couple spaces, and we're going to take a look under this shroud for giggles. Just for giggles. Alright, and there is... Okay, so we can kind of see a little bit more of our mechanism here. How that works. It's just a series of levers that lead up to these little hammers. interesting. And you can kind of see where our computer keyboard layout kind of came from. It's basically been standard. It came from standardized keyboards from typewriters, basically. The QWERTY keyboard, and you see how each key is kind of angled off from one another. It's kind of like steps. You can see that's because you have to have room for each wire to go through, each rod to go through. Because if this was straight behind W, this would not be able to, the rod would not be able to go because W's rod is in the way. Although you could do it, realistically, it's a better design to have everything staggered. But this is where our keyboard for our computers nowadays originates from, the typewriter. And you can actually see, yeah, the ribbon. Looks like the guy hasn't used very much of this ribbon. You can see how it come out its slot. You can see how it feeds this way, so it can't go back. So obviously the guy put the ribbon in and never really used it. So I bet you if I maybe spun that around a little bit, I might be able to get to some fresher ribbon, maybe get some darker text out of it. But really, that's about all that's to it. I find mechanical devices like this, especially vintage ones, very intriguing due to the fact that they're super simple yet so complicated at the same time. They're well built, easy to work on, and easy to service. I mean, just look at the detail in here, this metal cover. These little dowels go into these rubber bushings, and so that you don't get this metal clacking on this metal when you move it around, they have rubber pads glued onto these little legs right here to keep any vibrations down from where you're carrying the thing or whatnot. What attention to detail that is. That just speaks of the quality from stuff made back in the day. It's unfortunate the way we're moving with this, with all the throwaway disposable items, non-repairable items, Apple iPhones, newer Samsung phones, laptops, even farmers' tractors. Stuff like that just grinds my gears, as some of you might recognize as a reference for you. That's a reference to Family Guy for you, those of you who don't know. You know what really grinds my gears? Alright, let's flip this thing over and put the bottom back on it. Look, you can see right there, that's the bell. I did wipe this bottom out. Just gently. I like how they have a cutout so you can see the serial number. Okay, let's get our flathead screws. And also, one thing I like about old stuff is the use of flathead screws. I love flathead screws. That's typically how you can tell the age of something. If it uses Phillips screws or, Torx screws, triangular shaped ones, pentalobe, you can typically tell the age of something. Older stuff typically uses flathead. Your newest stuff uses Phillips or Torx, or even Allen keys. Although Allen keys are common on older things too. Those are pretty nice feeling old flathead screws. They didn't feel like they wanted to strip out or anything. You can see this hole cut out right here, and this hole on the back side of the typewriter. That's to lock it into the little briefcase so you can carry it around with you. And yeah, this is a Pencrest, JCPenney Pencrest typewriter. But you can carry the case around with you, and it's not going to flip-flop around on the case. To release it, there's a button on the front of the case that you press. and it pulls the tab out of there so you can remove it from the case. My buddy was trying to yank it out of the case without, you know, looking at it first, and I knew by the way he was yanking it, he's giving it some force, so I told him to stop. Took one look at it, I was like, oh, there's a button on the front of the briefcase. Clicked it, and it released. I just picked it up. The way he looked at me, you should have seen it. I think that'll do it for this one. We got this thing working. It's actually in really good shape. It's got some whiteout dripped all over it in some places. Some whiteout on here where the guy went through. You can tell it's been used, but gently used. But I don't think you need to see me oil this thing. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. I'm going to take it apart. By take it apart, I mean take the bottom off, oil all these levers in here, oil the base of these hammers, and I'll even oil this track that this rides on to keep any wear from happening. Because I do plan on playing with this thing, do plan on using it. It also makes a nice display piece. I might set it on a shelf for display. Let's see here, what does that do? Oh yes, that just does something else, not sure. All right, till the next time.